Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Shabbos Shira, and we will, Emir Hashem, speak a thought for the week. Shabbos Shira is a Shabbos connected to the song the Yidden sang Oz Yoshir when Hashem performed that unbelievable miracle of the splitting of the sea. But before we speak about the thought of the week, first we'll start with a posik from the Rebbe's kapitel, posik Kuf Ches, kapitel Kuf Yutes. Nidveis Pi Ritzeino Hashem O Mishpatech Olam Deini, which translated means, please accept with favor the offerings of my mouth, Hashem, and teach me your judgments. Rashi says over here that Nidveis Pi means Divrei Ritzui, Shepi Misnadiv Lecha, words of appeasement that my mouth offers to you. Kol Nedava L'Shein Rotzenhu. Every time we use the word Nedava, it means goodwill. In other words, we could learn pshat, as we'll see connected to our thought for this week, that this is not that I'm saying it because I'm forced or because I have to. It's just coming from my free will, from a good place, as we'll explain. This week we're going to talk about davening, prayer, and it's something we do 3 times a day. And there's a sikh of the Rebbe connected to this week's parsha, which is very, very fundamental, and it changes our whole perspective. In the parsha, it speaks about how Parai sent away the Jews after being nuked 10 times, and he changes his mind after he sends them away, and he decides to give chase. And the pasuk says that the Egyptians were chasing the Yidden, and they came close, and then it says, Vayisu b'nei Yisrael es eineim, the Yidden picked up their eyes, Vihini Mitzrayim neisea achareim, they saw the Egyptians chasing them, Vayiru ma'ed, and they became frightened, Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael Hashem, and the Jews cried out to Hashem. Rashi, on these words that they cried out, Rashi says, Tofsu umnois avoisam, they adopted the craft of the forefathers to daven. And then Rashi brings that this is what Avram Avinu did, Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu. And he brings psukim that speak about how the others each davened. So when you learn this pasuk on a simple level, without the Rebbe's talk, you would say that when the pasuk says they became frightened and they cried out, and Rashi brings that they prayed, it means they prayed because they were in danger. It means they prayed because it was a crisis. They were pushed up against the wall. They had no choice, so they cry out to pray. So the Rebbe explains, first he asks a question, that, what do you mean? They just saw how Hashem nuked the Yidden 10 times. They just saw how Hashem nuked the Egyptians 10 times. So they were actually worried. Me worried? They thought they were in danger. They actually saw the greatest demonstrations of Hashem's powers. And Hashem already told them that I'm taking you out of Egypt to take you to Eretz Yisrael. So what would they be worried about? So if they believed in the promise that Hashem already gave them, there was no need to pray. And if they didn't believe, in other words, they had their doubts about Hashem, so what would prayer help? Who are they davening to? They don't believe in Hashem's powers. And just to make this even more powerful, the fact that they believed, we see later on, when the women gave Shira, it says that Miriam took the tambourine in her hand. So they had tambourines. What does Rashi say? A phenomenal Rashi. Where did the tambourines come from? So Rashi says, the women of the generation, the righteous women of the generation, were certain that Hashem would perform miracles for them. They They carry tambourines with them. So that's even so amazing. They already had seen 10 miracles. Okay? They're going out of Egypt and they're carrying tambourines. Why? Because they're certain that they ain't seen nothing yet. There's still going to be even greater things happening. So they were so sure that there were greater miracles going to happen that they actually carried tambourines with them in anticipation of the miracles that were going to happen. So how can you say they all of a sudden got scared and cried out? So however we're going to explain the wording in the pasuk that they got scared, I don't want to go into all the details of the Rebbe's talk. And now he addresses many questions that I cannot address in the scope of this talk. But we're just going to get to the answer. The Rebbe says that the reason why Rashi says over here, Tafsu Umanois, is because we're not talking about a prayer which is connected to a because, for a purpose. And the Rebbe says all the psukim that Rashi brings proofs that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov prayed are talking about occasions where nothing was happening, it wasn't because they were asking for something that those prayers happened. Because if Rashi wanted to bring proofs from psukim that the Avis prayed when they needed something, then he should have brought other psukim. These psukim don't bring out that it came as a request for something. So in truth, let's first introduce, in general, we could say that in prayer there are two views, two perspectives, two levels. There's one level of prayer which is called Bakoshas Tzarachav. When you need something, who are you going to call? Hashem. Why? Because you have the absolute knowledge and power and certainty that there's only one power, one force that can really make a difference. And that's a very noble thing. And that's actually one of the essential definitions of prayer, and the purpose of prayer and the meaning of prayer, your acknowledgement that there's only one real power. That's one level of prayer. Then there's another level of prayer which Chassidus says and emphasizes that the word tefillah comes from the word atayfel kli cheres. When you have a chip, a piece of a earthenware vessel, and it became broken off. So atayfel kli cheres means when you repair the dish, the vessel, you reattach that piece to where it belongs. So what's prayer? Prayer is attachment. Prayer is connection. To connect yourself to Hashem. It's bonding. But let's take it even a step further. It's not even prayer in order to connect. It's prayer, and this is what the Rebbe explains over here, umanis. A Jew does as a Jew is. As is. In other words, Yidden pray. A Yid is a davener. Not because. Not something reactive. It's just, that's what a Yid is. Like we hear stories, in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, all the Hasidic tales of the wood chopper, while he's chopping his wood, he's going, all day long, he's conversing with Hashem. Like to a mother, like to a father. Not because you're going to get something from it, but because it's impossible any other way. You're attached at the hip. You feel for your mother. You feel for your father. And you burst out, with song because it's a reflection of your connection. And just to bring a couple of stories, and this is the reason why I'm talking about this today, because just this week I heard some very interesting stories that I thought this is a message. I must talk about this. First, I'll tell you a story that brings this out with myself. I once went to America, and I brought a professor from Australia to New York 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I took him to the oil. So we're sitting by the oil, and I have a pen in hand, and I'm writing my pan. And I tell him, he's sitting across me, Professor, it's going to take a while. I'm writing a pan. So if you have any requests, write a pan too. A pan is the note. We ask the holy people, the tzaddikim, to pray. So for us, so we go to the gravesite and we daven there, and we ask for the tzaddik to be our lawyer intercede on our behalf. This is a Jewish custom for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So when I told him about this, he just was staring me at the face in silence. And I said, like, what's wrong? So he says, I should ask for something? Who am I to ask? I said, it's about the relationship. It's not a request. It's not like you're a stranger and you have to first ask yourself if you're worthy or you're not worthy. And who am I to make a request? No. It's like a son talking to a father. You're connected anyways. And the Rebbe loves you. And the Rebbe is a leader who thinks only about the nation and others. So that's what I explained to him. Like, when you're talking to your father or your mother about your life, it's not necessarily because they can do something for you or because they can help you. It's just, you're just sharing it with your mom. You're sharing it with your mama and tata because they love you so much. And you think to yourself, they're about the only ones who really care about you. And they want to hear about your life. So it's not because of what they're going to do for you. It's because you're sharing it because you're one. So that's what I told him. I was actually so humbled that he felt that it wasn't right for him to ask, to make a shopping list. I want this and I want that. So I was humbled by his approach. But I explained to him, when a son or a child talks to their father, they don't think whether they're worthy or not. It's just natural. And this is what the Rebbe means over here when he says the umnis. Exactly that. Sometimes you turn to Hashem, it's just natural. That's the default position of a Jew. Yidden are not doctors or lawyers or accountants, we're daveners. Another story I heard this week, which is so profound, is that in the later years when the Frierdiker Rebbe needed help, physical help, like aids in the house. So there was someone who helped him with his tefillin to make sure his tefillin was right. So one of those people recounted a tale that happened, that one time this person gave the Frierdiker Rebbe a mirror to look at his own face to see if the tefillin was straight. So when the Frierdiker Rebbe looked at it, saw his face in the mirror, he said, Odos bin ich, a davener. He said, this is who I am, a davener. This is so profound. In other words, that's the definition. It's not something that an activity superimposed. It's just like I breathe, I daven. Odos bin ich, a davener. This week was Yud Shvat was last Shabbos, which was the Yortzeit of Rebbetzin Rivka, the Frierdiker Rebbe's grandmother, the wife of the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe. Yud Gimel Shvat, which was this week, Yud Gimel, was the Yortzeit of Rebbetzin Sterner Sora, the Frierdiker Rebbe's mother, the wife of the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab. So there were two stories. One I had already known before, the one that happened with Rebbetzin Rivka and how she passed away, but I never knew the story of what happened with Rebbetzin Sterner Sarah, and I read it this week, and I was so moved. I couldn't get over it. How unbelievable, stupendous, and unreal, and otherworldly those stories were. The first story happened in 1914. We're talking about Rebbetzin Rivka. Yud Shvat, she passed away. This is the Frierdiker Rebbe's grandmother, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was there. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said the following. He told over, it was a sudden passing. She requested a siddur, and she davened. I, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, took the siddur from her. She placed her hand on my head, and she said, thank you for the bother that you had to get me a siddur. I went to put away the siddur, probably like in another room next door. I went to put away the siddur, and when I came back, she had already passed on. My parents, the Frierdiker Rebbe's parents, the Rebbe Rashab and Rebbetzin Steiner Sora were not there. So when the Frierdiker Rebbe had then, later, told over the story of what happened to his grandmother, and he told it over to his parents, including to his mother, so he told it to Rebbetzin Steiner Sora, who is the daughter-in-law of Rebbetzin Rivka. His mother had said, Ich wünsch dich azay. I wish something similar. I wish something like that would happen. In other words, that she would pass so peacefully, so spiritually, so holy, out of prayer, out of something which represents the Jew connecting, a Yid, his soul is yearning, longing, and getting attached to Hashem, and then it should actually become totally one, like transcend the body and reunite with the source. And listen to what happened in 1942. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes this. He wasn't there, but he obviously heard the following. It was Shabbos Kodesh, Pashas Beshalach. And before prayer time, by this time, Rebbetzin Steiner saw the Frierdiker Rebbe's mother had been bedridden for like a month or two. And she expressed herself that day. It was Shabbos Shira, this upcoming Shabbos, tonight. And this is another reason why I thought it was very important to tell the story. So it's 1942, Shabbos morning, Shabbos Shira. Rebbetzin Steiner Sara is bedridden, and she says, Heint is Shabbos Shira, but darf man gar anders davenen. Today is Shabbos Shira. We have to daven completely different. It has to be a whole different sort of davening. She prayed, and in the middle of davening, by the section Nishmas Kol Chai, she returned her soul to Hashem as the siddur was in her hands. So she had said, Ich wünsch dich azay, and she says, Shabbos Shira darf daven gar anders. And as she says, Nishmas Kol Chai, how every soul proclaims the greatness of Hashem, her soul reunites with Hashem. How unbelievable the story is. And this is a lesson. Chevre, we're coming to Shabbos Shira. Davening in general is Shira. So we have to make a resolution. Our davening should be more besimcha. Don't worry if you have any requests and you need anything, please fill your prayer and have all that in mind also, because Hashem wants you to ask for whatever you need. And He should take care of everything you need. But please also, let's work on ourselves. And let's think about this idea that to us, davening is natural, like breathing. This is what we do. This is what we're about. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Ich bin a davener. And we should all try to enrich our davening with this sort of feeling as a child who's speaking to the parents. You know that when you speak to your mother and father, you feel a special feeling, a bond and a connection. And the Eibusher should help that this Shabbos Shira, we should say Oz Yoshir, full of song, like it says in the Ayim Yoim of Terei Tezayin Shvat, as lernen and dafen mit a bren. We should have a fiery enthusiasm in our prayers. Nidva is P. It's coming full of a place of will, because we want, because we enjoy, because this is who we are. And the Eibusher will help that through our prayers of Oz Yoshir, Tov Shin Pei Aleph, will come to the Oz Yoshir, as Rashi says, the Tchias HaMeisim, Begula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Miyad, Mamish. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisborech, your man in Melbourne.